pressure. Now, some may ask, in that case, is high pressure better or low pressure better? Is there such a thing? Now, it depends on the situation. For example, when you are using your thumbtack. Now, what is a thumbtack? Basically, thumbtack has this plastic over here, and then down here is actually a metal pin. You use it to actually stick your whatever post-it note on top of a soft board, right? So how this works is that this thumb pin, when you push into the thing, it will actually pierce into another object. Now that is where pressure come about. When you want to use a thumb pin to actually sink into the soft board, would you want to use a lot of force, or do you want to use very little force? Because you are going to push this thing in, right? You are going to apply a certain force. Do you want this force to be huge or small? You want it to be small, right? Now, in order for an object to sink into another object, what matters is actually the pressure. So, in order for something to sink, we would want to have high pressure. But at the same time, we want this high pressure to be produced by a relatively small force, because we want the thumbtack to just go in with as little effort as possible. So if we look at the formula P equals to F over A, I want this to be big and I want this to be small. So what should be the value for this particular parameter, the area? We want it to be even smaller, right? We want this to be like super small, so that this tiny amount of force can still generate a big pressure. How do we get a very small area of contact? We make sure that this pin over here is extremely sharp, so that the object can sink into another object. Now, what other application requires similar mechanism? Well, when you take your flu jab, or hopefully there will be a COVID-19 jab, you would want the needle to sink into the flesh very quickly, right? And with very little effort. You do not want to, have a hammer, the nurse take out a hammer and hammer the needle into your flesh, right? You want the nurse to, just use his, skillful hands to just, and then the needle go in and you don't feel that much pain. So similarly, in needle, when you want things to sink into another object, you would want high pressure. So to summarize, why are we studying pressure? One of the reasons is that because we know that an object actually penetrates another object due to pressure. So you may say, teacher, in that case, does it mean that we always want high pressure? Is there a situation whereby we want low pressure instead? Can you think of one? Okay, maybe you may have difficulty thinking of one because you have not entered into the army, or you are living in a tropical country where there's no winter snow. So for example, in a construction site where you have mud, whereby the ground is very soft and you need to walk on it, do you want to walk on the mud with your feet on the mud, or do you not mind your feet get sink into the mud while you are walking? So when you are walking on soft ground like mud or snow, you would want to not sink into the mud or snow, right? So high pressure would enable an object to sink into another object, or to penetrate into another object. So so in opposite, for example, when you're walking on soft ground, you would not want your feet to sink or penetrate into the ground, right? So in that case, if you do not want this to happen, you would want to have low pressure. So how could you achieve low pressure? If you look at the formula P equals F over A, if you want this guy to be like small, what you can do is, of course, you go on a diet to hopefully reduce your weight, right? Because when you step on the mud, basically you are applying a downward force, which is your weight onto the ground. But you know that weight loss can be difficult. So what to do? What if you have a constant weight? can you devise certain things so that you can have low pressure? Well, you can. You have to make sure your area is very big. The contact area is very big. How do you have a big contact area? Well, one way is to have a giant feet like McDonald, but you cannot stretch your feet, right? So what happened is that they have this thing called snowshoe. So at the very beginning, olden days, they just use whatever resources they have to actually increase their feet area. So they wore this on their feet. Now, nowadays, if you want to go for mountaineering in snow region, what you can do is that you can put on devices like that to increase the contact area when you are stepping onto the snow so that you will not sink into the soft snow. How about in construction site? Well, in construction site, you actually see that the heavy vehicle, they don't use wheels, right? But instead, they actually use this. Let's see if I can show you. They use this, right? So, for example, this. Why is it that they use this? Because the belt will actually increase the contact area between the vehicle and the ground. So by doing so, those vehicle is very heavy. They are made up of metal. They have to lift heavy things, so they have an enormous amount of weight. So if you do not want this machine to get stuck and sink into the ground, you would not want to use wheel, but you use wheel belt. So the wheel belt basically increase the contact area between the machine and the ground, and that will reduce the pressure. So when you reduce the pressure, you would not sink into the ground.